Welcome to Talk to Me, Conversations on Relationship Power, hosted by Love Before All. I'm Annie Paraison. Relationships are the blueprint for everything we build, from our families to our teams to our communities. Join us for real conversations that move beyond the surface. Let's grow in love together to grow the beloved community. Beloved, today's conversation is deeply personal for me, and it's very special because of the woman that I'm speaking with today. Meena is a contemplative leader, a speaker, and an author of 2 books that seek to cultivate schools and classrooms as beloved learning communities. She's the co-founder and executive director of Transformative Educational Leadership, a program I had the profound honor of graduating from in 2023. But beyond her professional titles, Meena is a lay Dharma teacher in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, the very monk who was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She's also the co-founder of the Thich Nhat Hanh School of Interbeing. Meena, you have been a teacher and a mirror for me. Welcome to Talk to Me.
Annie, it's a joy to be here with you today. And, I'm remembering one of the first moments I met you at the Omega Institute in, I believe it was 2022, if I'm correct. And it was July, and we were going through a particularly tense moment at the start of building this community. And the way that you shared from the heart, like in that moment, you became my teacher. And so just to say that we're really here as siblings in a reciprocal learning space, and that I hold deep love, admiration, and respect for you and who you are and your unwavering commitment to beloved community. And so just a joy to be able to spend time with you, my dear sister.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited for this conversation. But before we dive into the deep waters of self-awareness and mindfulness, we ground every single episode of the show in the exact same place. We believe we have a blueprint for connection, and when you look back at your journey, who or what taught you the most about relationship, and how has that shaped who you are today?
Thank you so much for that question, Annie. There are 2 people that come to my heart, and they both have transitioned, one more recently. So I want to start with just talking about my auntie, Banu auntie. She is an Indian woman who was born and raised in South Africa under apartheid, and she was my next door neighbor growing up. And I had the gift of really growing up, we were neighbors, but as one family, and my parents worked a lot. And my dad even worked 2 jobs, and it's, your classic immigrant story, coming here with $200 and trying to find your way in America. And I think my mom was able to pursue her career because Banu auntie was next door. And Banu auntie had lived a life of great, great suffering. And I think about, a lot of women in my lineage, Indian women in particular, just the patriarchy and just all that comes with that when you're born into that particular cultural context. And she really was my first and is still my greatest spiritual teacher, because from a very young age, she invited me into cultivating a relationship with the divine. Now, whatever you want to call it, the divine, the cosmos, universe, God, love, whatever you want to call it, but taking refuge in something greater. And to have that as a child has really been like the greatest, greatest gift of my life. And, about a year ago, I was with my own mother, my biological mother. I often say I'm like gifted to have 2 mothers in this life, like my auntie who helped raise me, and also my mom, because I am a woman in the world that is, fully inhabiting, what my mom's transmitted to me about around being a leader, right? And so I was with my mom about a year ago, and I looked at her and I asked, have there ever been any women in our family who have been free? And she paused for a while and looked at me and said, no. And so when I think about my life being born and raised in the United States, and I also spent a significant amount of my 20s in India, and I'll share about that in a second because it has to do with the second person who has taught me the most about, is it connection and relationship. But I have the great good fortune of having a lot of external freedom that the women who've come before me in my lineage haven't had. But I also have the great privilege of cultivating inner freedom, or we're going to quote some Bob Marley here, emancipating ourselves from mental slavery, because it's both, right? Freedom is an inside job and an outside job. And that's really the core of transformative educational leadership, is the integration of the inner and the outer. And so my life is about freedom. My life is about being the first free woman in my lineage. And I have a lot of external freedom, but right now I'm really working on that internal freedom in all the ways, as a mother, as a leader, as a daughter, caring for aging parents. And so just to say that freedom is my great aspiration. And also that I can't be free if others who are more oppressed aren't free. And I think that's where the deep learnings of solidarity and siblinghood that come through TEL, that come through the solidarity movements that are so important with, I think about our connection as women of color, but also recognizing we enter from different locations and the world experiences us and we experience the world differently because of that. But how do we always stand in solidarity with each other as women of color? And when I'm in a particular space, how do I invite more people in? How do I use my relative privilege given my particular identity to expand the circle? That also connects with, you mentioned my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, who was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he's really the second person that comes to mind when I think about who has had the greatest influence on how I make sense of connection and relationship. And definitely his teachings on interbeing are at the core of that, or at the core of the school we're trying to start here in San Diego at the foothills of Deer Park Monastery, the School of Interbeing. Um, but it's interesting, Annie. I received the LAMP transmission to become a lay Dharma teacher in our community. And yesterday I was sitting with one of the most senior monks. He came over to spend some time with my husband and I. We're experiencing a moment of what Dr. King would call constructive tension here, which is such a part of TEL, right? Like you have to have constructive tension to actually build beloved community. So we're sitting in that right now here in the work we're doing with the school and this experiment of lay people and monastics living together. And he was sharing a story about how Thich Nhat Hanh, at points in his life, he's a Zen master. There is this like deep tradition and lineage that he holds. And as he got older, he really invited in more lay people to be teachers, right? And this senior monastic was telling this story of like, back in the day, I didn't get to do this because there was more people receiving the lamp a year ago. And the lamp transmission, it's something in our community that where you are offered this lamp of wisdom to really be a lineage holder. And anyway, this senior monk was telling me how this is maybe in the early 90s or late 80s when Thich Nhat Hanh was, transmitting the lamp to more lay people who hadn't gone through monastic training in the way you normally would to be considered a teacher in this lineage. And this man was interviewing him, and because after you received the lamp back in the day, you would give a short Dharma talk, a teaching, sharing your insight. And the interviewer said, gosh, these people don't know anything. they're being called teachers, and they're giving this like they haven't really understood the Dharma. They haven't really understood Zen. And Han said that actually the training begins when you receive the lamp. And so I'm realizing now, like I turned 45 and I received the lamp, and my life circumstances have forced me into this other level of training. And it really feels like here I am with beginner's mind. And I think that's part of like how we hold tell too. It's just like openness. Like we're constantly learning. We don't have the answers. Can we be open? And even like Buddhism, one of the teachers here talks about how I think Thich Nhat Hanh actually said Buddhism is a laxative. Like it's constantly like it's letting go, letting go, letting go, release, release, release. And I feel like that's what's alive for me now in the work and tell as a mother in my marriage. Can I let go a little more? Can I let go a little more? Can I see where I'm holding on? Can I let go? Because when you move through life like this, you you prevent yourself from growing. And so, yeah, the more I can let go of having a fixed view, the more I'm going to grow as a leader and as a practitioner. So, a lot, I know I shared a lot there. You asked me a really big question though, Annie.
It was. And as you're speaking and sharing, I'm connecting with you. And I know I'm like, oh, all of the answers came, and I was like, oh, you chose the right person for the self-awareness talk, because your answer was just so full, and it was so layered, and it really told me that yes, when you thought about self-awareness, Meena came to mind for this exact reason.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
And as like we continue, we also know that true self-awareness rarely happens in a vacuum. So it for me, it usually starts with someone else who sees me, and they invite me, they put up a mirror to invite me to look at myself through in relationship. So when you look at your early life or early practice in general, who was the first person to hold up a mirror that either called you to your deepest potential or gently called out your nonsense?
Mm. Well, I want to go with a high school memory, and then I want to go with the moment I'm in right now. So I had a teacher in 11th grade named Mrs. Marcus, and she saw my heart and she helped me cultivate like this like boldness and fearlessness that wasn't like grounded in ego, but like motivated by this sense of like if I could connect with the power within myself, that perhaps I could create conditions for other people to connect with their power as well. And this was the 90s in New Jersey. I'm like this Indian girl. I mean, but yeah, she saw me and she saw what was possible and like really nurtured this confidence. I want to talk a little bit about confidence too, because I think sometimes people think that like confidence is like you're confident about yourself, and it's like no, confidence for me is actually around trusting in your capacity to keep growing. And because like the universe is going to keep slapping you along the way. But if you come across a teacher that helps you connect with this belief, and even, one of the only times I ever spoke to Nat Han, I asked him about faith. Faith isn't a word in Buddha. You don't come across faith in traditional Buddhist teachings. But he said, faith is trusting in your capacity to awaken your Buddha nature. And so it really is about committing to a path, committing to a long journey, and trusting in the practice, trusting in this practice of like letting go, that I shared earlier. And I think in the current moment I'm in, so just for context, our family has moved. We're the first family to move to the foothills of a monastery to really figure out what does it mean to have a family, a lay family, live adjacent to monastics. who live in Kairos time. I mean, like they have two robes and a bowl, and like they operate so differently. You know, I'm learning so much. I want to come my proposal, my agenda, and it's like, girl, you ain't gonna move anything here if you. Everything moves through relationship. Everything moves through practicing together. You know, it's trust, and trust takes time. And it's been a great learning for me. And, you know, I'm in this moment now where I want to come and like build beloved community here, build multiracial beloved community. You know, I want us to deeply examine race, power, and privilege. And I've had a great learning around really showing up in a direct way in a culture practices indirect communication. And it just reminds me like you have to really understand the context you're in if you want to be a change agent. And you have to really let go of timing. So like, you know, a week ago I was like, this is so important to me. Like Annie, I was like, I'm willing to go on a hunger strike for the community to commit to this. And it's like laughable when I think about it now because there's so much self-righteousness in it. Like here I am thinking I'm like practicing satyagraha and Gandhian principles. And it's like, girl, get off your high horse. That's not how things are going to roll here. And it's like I'm having this opportunity to really practice deeply what we are invited to do in Tell. And so my understandings of the principles of nonviolence, or even, you know, what Dr. King talks about around constructive tension. And it's like it's becoming like super real for me because I'm in it and it's powerful and I'm going through like every day, can I let go a little more? Can I have greater compassion? Can I see the partial truths in what everyone is bringing to the table? Can I let go of my fixed view? So, where I'm at with this, like, I want racial equity now, is can I be open? Like, where we're at is like everyone has agreed that this matters and we're committed to it. But I have to let go of the timing and the form. You know, I have to let go of that a little bit for it to truly be something everybody cares about. And so for me, my like get shit done kind of way of doing things is not going to work here. But I do know that what we create here is going to be so powerful and so beautiful because it will be the product of doing it together, truly doing it together in a way that like frankly I've never had to, like, because we live together. We're like it's like a totally different container for understanding beloved community.
Oof. Oof. Thank you so much. And I'm hearing you share, and I think that sometimes people can hear contemplative leader and Dharma teacher, and they think that means you never make a mistake or you
Oh
never
hell
get
no,
triggered.
man.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the reality really is, no matter how much mindfulness work we do, we're humans and we all have blind spots.
Mm.
So talk about how, or share about a time when a lack of self-awareness on your part led to a relationship breakdown, and what was the hard lesson that fundamentally changed the way that you operate today?
Yeah, again, I want to give two examples because like everything is so alive here for me. So the whole arc of Tell, where Tell is now, I mean, Tell began 8 years ago, is the result of leadership being willing to be public learners. And that means a lot of humility, a lot of letting go, a lot of listening, a lot of even like being canceled. And then, like, how do you come back from being canceled? You know, it's like, Annie, you've watched it. You've like seen me over the past few years. It's like the evolution of, you know, so much of this has been, yeah, about like growing my humility and being open to learning publicly, which is scary. And you don't have authenticity. I don't think we'd have the like the feeling that people have in the tell space if we didn't do it any other way. And like that's meant that I've like had to like fail publicly and like, make big mistakes. And I'd say that the lack of self-awareness and the lack of social awareness are directly related to each other. And I think we also have to be willing as an organization to be committed to continue, it's like continuous improvement. What I don't like all that jargon, but really it's like to continuously learn, to continuously be open, to go slower, to have a very emergent, organic way about doing things, which is very different from the culture. And then I'd say I am in a moment right now. I'm not sure when this is going to air, so it's kind of raw and it's what is alive, where I live down the street from how unfiltered can I be, Annie? Like,
Completely. Completely. This
oh,
is,
all
I
right.
said, we're
This is like
stripping away all
real,
of
like,
the layers.
so I come from living and working in Oakland for many, many years. My husband and I talk about how our consciousness is Oakland. In Oakland, we often say the revolutionary pilot light is always on in Oakland. There's a way in which you're oriented. If you live and work in Oakland and are open to Oakland transforming you, you have more of an Oakland consciousness. And I ain't in Oakland right now. I'm in North County, rural San Diego. And there's a white family who lives down the street from me who are kind-hearted people. And this all started about 2 months ago. Actually, not like MLK Day is when everything started. And like, I kind of had a noticing of like, from my lens, right, unexamined white privilege, like liberal white, kind of my story about liberal white people. Again, really kind-hearted people. But I'm coming in with Oakland and I'm coming in with a little like of it's going to take some time for me to really trust you. I need to know you're about it. I don't think you're about it, right? And there's a bit of self-righteousness around that. And so I kind of went in a little too hot with the father and the family and the mother to some degree, but I went in a little too hot with a little too much arrogance because I'm about it. And I don't think they're about it, right? So, and it's been painful. And and at the same time, my going in a little hot created some constructive tension that has opened a powerful door. So I'm in inquiry around, yeah, I could have been more skillful. I could have, my learning from this, like maybe with white folks, like, first of all, also, I didn't know their willingness, like, if for being on this
Mhm.
journey either until, to some degree, the white bodied folks that joined Hell are signing up with the sense of willingness. And I don't have that same willingness here. And I made some assumptions around that because I'm like, oh, well, we're the lineage of beloved community, and our teacher was in solidarity with Dr. King. So I'm making an assumption about where white folks are coming from and Asian folks, for example. And I'll just totally transparent. I am the only person here who is racialized as a brown person, which is crazy because I totally get my relative privilege, Annie. And when I'm in a space with Black and Latino folks, like I show up differently, right? And and I'm carrying you all in my heart here as well because Tell has forever changed me, and you and your beloved Michael and everyone, you all live inside me now. So I had this experience where like I very calmly, because I do have a mindfulness practice, very calmly, but too directly. I invited in some reflection about white privilege that the other party may not yet have been ready for. They haven't yet been in a situation where anyone's called them into this kind of reflection. They're doing a lot more than what a lot of whites are doing. They were in a white affinity group after George Floyd. And of course, in my head, I'm like, typical. I ask them about the work. They're like, oh, I did a white affinity group with George Floyd. I'm like, oh, I got one of these folks. All right. But instead of coming in with like, hey, there's some openness here. Can I meet him at his zone of proximal development? I instead came in with a little bit of arrogance, and I came in too hot. I came into Oakland, and it started a conflict here that escalated. And I there were points along the way where I could have had different moves. And at the same time, there's part of me that's like, yeah, but there's like an opening that may not have happened if I went in like indirect communication, you know,
Mhm.
little. So I'm kind of in this inquiry around like, I feel like sometimes our nervous systems do need to be jolted a little bit to wake up. And that's what had to happen for me until I had to have my nervous system. I had to be canceled. And then I had to learn how to stick with it and how to build trust. And, it's amazing. I think about people in cohort one who I never thought that like like, man, at that time, like, could we ever have true friendship? And now there's like sisterhood and there's mutual respect and because I think people, even with all the mistakes I've made and they know that I'm committed to true beloved community and I'm committed to being humble and being like, yeah, I messed up and can we learn? And I'm here. And that it's also not like it can't be I'm here. It's like the actions have to actually like even just our move to go to a different retreat center, right? Like you have to actually like act upon the learning to build trust as well. So all that is to say, it's like 8 years of TEL, so much growth and development. Feels amazing now. Feels like we're entering another phase as a community. And we still have a lot to grow and learn, but I'm like starting over in a new space with folks who may not yet be willing. And I have to really slow down and really build relationship and really build trust in a different cultural context. And, the other week I said, man, this would be so much easier if I was just with white supremacists because I know where they stand. And here it's like cloaked and, it's like, and you know what? This is like what the universe has dealt for me now. And this is what I'm being called into. And yesterday, when I was sitting with the senior monastic, he looked at me, he said, you're here for many reasons, but I think one of the reasons why you're here, because the community has not yet been able to really engage on this topic of race, power, and privilege in a way that where it's truly moved. And he's like, I think you're here to help us find another way. And it's only going to happen when someone lives in proximity to monastics and is showing up in a regular base, regular way, building trust and like, you know, coming one step at a time. And I even said to him at the end, I was like, yeah, I guess I have to let go of my dream of like the entire monastery and school community doing a book study of mindful of race. And he's like, don't let go of the dream. It will happen. It will take time. He was like 2 years. I see that here. So it's, yeah. Anyways, you're catching me at this really interesting moment, Annie, where, it's like hell is now my refuge. And the community here is like where I'm practicing. Whereas before it was flipped. And it's like, yeah, it's like really, really, really powerful. And I'm still sitting with that. And I'm still
Well,
about it,
thank you.
but
Thank
I
you.
got to do it in a really different way here. And I've had a lot of learnings in the past almost 2 months around that.
I'm seeing the synchronicity in the conversations I've had today. I had a coaching session earlier, and one of the things I heard myself share with a leader that's trying to regulate a relationship between a white-bodied teacher and a Hispanic-bodied teacher. And what I heard myself share was, yes, there's the whiteness, but in the whiteness, we have to remember to humanize that
Yeah,
individual,
totally.
because it's in the humanization that we do not use the master's tool when that's what we're trying to
Yeah,
fight. Because when we just group whiteness and then just go at whiteness in one way, we forget to humanize the individual that's actually in front of us.
yeah,
We're both grounded in beloved community. You with more of the school community and me with like what's happening in organizations. And we talk a lot about individual self-awareness because we know the leader, the teacher's nervous system will pretty much set the tone for the environment for everyone else. What does it look like for an organization or a school or even a community to be self-aware? Like, what are the systems that actually have the humility to look in the mirror and then when they are causing harm, to course correct towards care?
Wow, it's so interesting because I feel like that's what we're trying to figure out in building intentional community here right now. And I feel like until, you know, there are so many practices. We're sort of in this space now where like Aja's building out what are our contemplative protocol, like contemplative facilitation moves, because everything we do and tell is very contemplative. And being contemplative, just anything that's contemplative is inviting in self-awareness. I mean, that's really like the core of contemplative practice is, for me, like the simple way that I explain mindfulness, contemplative practice, even my spiritual practice, we are strengthening our capacity to be the witness of what's unfolding internally, externally, the interplay of both. And I loudly, adjacent to a monastery where people are in sitting meditation. I'm not able to get up there early in the morning. I hope when, my life context shifts a bit. But that practice in and of itself of committing to sit and watch and bear witness to what is unfolding internally and to not attach to it and create some space is so powerful. It's like you're filling up your mindfulness gas tank throughout the day to not get as caught. And I realized just in like the stress and the life context I'm in right now, how when I'm under resourced, when I lose my capacity to hold the large view and how harmful that can be for myself and for others. And so I would just say, like in organizations and communities, like having deliberate, intentional practice where we are watching our monkey mind is really, really, really important. And then having micro practices throughout the day. So at the monastery, we have bells going off all the time, multiple times a day. And so we're always taking sacred pauses. And when those sacred pauses happen, we come back to our breath and our body. We check in on what's happening internally for us. So it's baked into the culture. And I think with Tell too, there's other ways in which we do that that fit the Tell cultural context, which is different from a monastery rooted in Vietnamese Zen Buddhism, right? But these practices are important and they require frequency and like ongoing collective and individual commitment.
What gentle practice for building more meaningful and self-aware relationships could you offer our listeners?
Mm. Well, the one that I've been playing with now, which, helped me come up with a better name for, because I think, I'm doing all this tenderness research and we just finished 4 studies and it's
Mhm.
like so exciting. But it's one that I just do. I've been doing it like, you know, I would say every time I enter a conversation that might be charged, ever since I like, played a part in escalating conflict here, is just soften, open, deepen, slow. And I just keep saying that to I'm gonna, soon after our call ends, I gotta go pick up my son. So before my son comes in the car after aftercare, soften, open, deepen, slow, breathing, feeling my feet, in the car when I park, and then when he comes to not just be like, hey, hon, here's your snack, but it's like, hi, sweetheart, you know, showing up with my full presence and being present. I think also just like self compassion. Like, I could easily in this moment be like, girl, you messed up. You're supposed to know all this nonviolent stuff, and you just like doing things here. You were like, if Gandhi and Dr. King saw you now. I mean, I don't know. I think Dr. King would be like, you did some constructive tension. This was supposed to happen because you're supposed to learn and you're supposed to, you know, like invite some folks to feel a little uncomfortable in ways they haven't before. So I'm still sitting with that. But yes, my big learning here also is like too much too fast, with a little bit of too much. This is the way, without being open to like, can we find the way together? And now that's what's happening here. It's going to take a lot longer. So my like want to get shit done and have a policy tomorrow. Part of me has to like just go to sleep, kind of take a nap. Take a nap, Meena. Get shit done, Meena needs to take a long nap right now. And kind of let this go and trust in the Sangha, trust in the community.
Practice absolutely makes progress. Meena, this has been an absolute gift. And to close out, I invite you to complete this sentence. Self-awareness is...
Self-awareness is the most powerful act of self-love and bringing love into the world. Yeah, because if you aren't self-aware, you'll keep harming yourself and harming others. So, yeah. Yay.
Thank you so much for sharing
Thank you,
yourself and your
beloved sister.
time.
So much love. I am off to go spend time with one of our beloved TEL folks, Jose Jimenez, right now. So I'm a very, very, very blessed human that I get to be in space with people like you, like Jose, and everyone in our TEL beloved community. So blessings, blessings to everyone who is tuning in. And Annie,
Wishing you well.
you are a phenomenal woman. I am so grateful for your presence in my life and that we're going to continue to learn on the path together. All right, dear. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us in the practice of listening today on Talk to Me. We hope this conversation gave you a new route to water in your own leadership or life. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend and visit us at lovebeforeall.com to continue building the beloved community together. Until next time, grow in love and grow with love.